When the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Rachel Zegler had planned to silence her critics, but what she wrote instead lit the match that sent everything up in flames. In a now popular video recorded from what appeared to be her bedroom, the Snow White actress gazed into the camera with a mix of frustration and defiance. She insisted that despite all the hate she's received online, people still show up and line up to support her work. Her tone teetered between teary-eyed vulnerability and passive-aggressive indignation as she defended her performance and called out the negativity that surrounded the project since its release.
Excuse me, your curtain. Please allow me to help.
Help? From you?
I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you should know that
That I should know what? That some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters? Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse.
She spoke with the confidence of someone seeking to reclaim her narrative, but the internet had other plans. Within minutes, snippets from the video were circulating like wildfire.
But it's only been 2 days, give it a chance. No, I'm not gonna give it a chance. I'm not even talking about that number. It's like all the flops are unsurprising at this point. Something is going on behind the scenes with almost every major animation, video game, and movie studio that they're doing this intentionally or something. I don't fucking know. I'm not even gonna talk about this. People are like, oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in her industry, and her industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
While X, previously Twitter, deteriorated into full-blown pandemonium, instead of giving the redemption narrative she intended, Rachel had unknowingly delivered her critics a gold.
Hey guys, I watched Snow White, so you don't have to. Let's get into it. Now, first things first, Snow White gets her name not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know. Rachel Zegler would be a miscast in that sense. Instead, she gets her name from surviving a snowstorm. Her father and mother are king and queen to a utopian communist society. I'm not joking, guys. Everybody shares and is mindful of what each person is getting, and we spread our resources evenly, which is where this idea of fairness, as Snow White is the fairest of them all, is really presented in the film.
The hashtags told the whole story. Snowflop. What should have been a passionate response was seen as tone-deaf, self-centered, and out of touch with the reality of the film.
I'm a narcissist. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. That people will assume is a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie, Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I say, if I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
The hashtags told the whole story. Snowflop. What should have been a passionate response was seen as tone-deaf, self-centered, and out of touch with the reality of the film's reception.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Some even celebrated it. Screenshots of review bombs, joke threads mocking her statements about not requiring a prince, and out-of-context recordings from old interviews all resurrected like clockwork.
Welcome, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen.
Their work makes the impossible seem possible.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations.
Here are the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
What was meant to be a fairy tale comeback had become a digital witch trial. And in their eyes, the villain wasn't the evil queen, it was Rachel herself. People didn't forget the earlier press interviews where she joked off the original 1937 Snow White as weird and spooky, and then dismissing its romantic core as outmoded. Those clips had aged like milk, but the online outcry wasn't just discussion, it translated into cold, hard numbers. Snow White opened to a disappointingly dismal $45 million at the domestic box office. For a Disney live-action remake, let alone one that bore the historic legacy of the company's first animated feature, that number was stunning, especially when compared to The Little Mermaid, which, despite its own issues and online debates, drew in a solid $95 million on its first weekend. Box office analysts weren't just concerned, they were startled. Some labeled it Disney's biggest blunder in years. Others flat out declared it a flop. Either way, the stats didn't lie, and the consequences were immediate. Major theater chains began to surreptitiously take the film off their biggest screens, slotting in stronger performing movies and pushing Snow White to less desirable showtimes. Some places dropped the film outright within its second week. For a firm like Disney, known for dominating the theater industry, this was unknown territory. And for Rachel, it was a public unraveling. Even Disney's marketing machine couldn't recover the narrative once consumers had already turned away. Then came the Oscars. In what should have been a celebratory occasion, Rachel walked the red carpet alongside co-star Gal Gadot. The tension was intense. Photos and videos of the pair showed a significant lack of warmth. Gal scarcely acknowledged Rachel during press appearances, standing stiffly and avoiding eye contact. Observers online noticed instantly. Body language experts and gossip blogs were eager to point out what Disney PR had intended to downplay. These two women were not on good terms. Not anymore. And insiders later confirmed that Gal Gadot, while contractually required to promote the film, had since chosen to quietly distance herself from the project and its star. What made it worse was that Gadot's personal reputation seemed untouched by the backlash. She continued booking parts, gaining sponsor deals, and appearing at industry events without controversy. Rachel, meanwhile, found herself increasingly isolated, commended by a handful of diehard supporters, but drowning in a sea of negativity. Her Oscars attendance was designed to be damage control. Instead, it solidified her position as the face of Snow White's failure. All the goodwill that once followed her from West Side Story had vanished. Her attempt to adapt a classic came across as insulting. Her confidence now read as arrogance, and her effort to reclaim control of the narrative backfired spectacularly. What was supposed to be her breakout leading role had become the very thing that fractured her public image and perhaps her entire career trajectory. Rachel Zegler's viral tantrum may have been the spark, but the fuel had been building for months. As soon as the box office numbers began to crumble, users online wasted no time looking back through old interviews, bringing every controversial moment into the spotlight. Chief among them was her now infamous take on the original Snow White. In clip after clip, Rachel could be heard rolling her eyes, dismissing the 1937 classic as odd and outdated, scoffing at the romance, and insisting her version would be nothing like that. She confidently declared that the new Snow White wouldn't be saved by a prince, wouldn't dream of pure love, and wouldn't just be waiting around. But instead of being hailed for a feminist retelling, she was criticized for missing the point, and for trashing a film generations had loved. The backlash wasn't just from trolls or fringe voices. Longtime Disney fans, the ones who buy the merch, attend the parks, and show up opening weekend, felt insulted. Parents said they wouldn't take their kids to see a movie where the lead actress had openly disrespected the original. Grandparents posted TikToks explaining how the classic had touched them as children, and why they had no interest in seeing it reimagined by someone who seemed to hold only disdain for it. Even neutral viewers began to pile on, criticizing not just the tone of Rachel's words, but her attitude throughout the press tour. Words like arrogant, entitled, and out of touch flooded every comment section. And unlike many artists who weather public criticism with grace or manage to rally industry allies, Rachel found herself completely alone. There were no public tweets of support from co-stars, no directors defending her, no poignant remarks from fellow actresses about how hard the job can be. She was alone in eerie silence where even a single gesture of support could have made a difference. But none arrived. Instead, the absence said everything. Hollywood, it seemed, was already stepping back. Behind the scenes, that quiet turned into real consequences. Reports started trickling in that Rachel's future initiatives were now being reconsidered. One studio insider told a trade outlet that while she had initially been in talks for multiple high-profile roles, those discussions had drastically slowed. There were whispers of entire marketing teams reevaluating whether she could still anchor. A campaign? Was she bankable? Would audiences buy tickets to see her? Or would they associate her with backlash, bad press, and poor box office numbers? It's a harsh reality, but one Hollywood has always lived by. Perception is everything. And Rachel Zegler, once positioned as the fresh, new face of Gen Z stardom, after her breakout in West Side Story was now being viewed as a cautionary tale. Her rise had been meteoric. The adoration from critics, the Golden Globe win, the praise. From Spielberg himself, it all painted her as the next big thing. But with Snow White, all that momentum vanished. Her image, once sparkling with potential, had soured. Worse, this wasn't just a one-off. The fallout was worsened by timing. In an age where audiences are more vocal than ever and quick to vote. With their wallets, Rachel's controversy wasn't just bad PR, it became symbolic. To some, she represented everything wrong with how classic films were being reinterpreted. To others, she embodied unchecked celebrity ego. The argument was no longer just about avoiding the movie, it was about rejecting her. Insiders believe Rachel's team is scrambling. Publicists, agents, and managers are reportedly working to reframe the narrative, pitching Rachel for redemption-style features and softer press appearances. But the damage might already be done. It's hard to undo viral video, and even harder to rebuild trust with audiences who feel disrespected. The industry has seen stars bounce back from worse, but only when they've shown humility or had the charm to win people over again. So far, Rachel has offered neither. She's doubled down, lashed out, and remained stubborn. And with each move, the road to recovery narrows. Some are already calling it the Hollywood It Girl, who was once expected to carry Disney's next great franchise, may have just become one of the most